Hey, everybody. There is a big difference between economic collapse and government control. And don't be naive. Literally, economic collapse is often caused by government so they can actually do control. So the two obviously are very interrelated. But there's a lot of misconceptions as far as understanding what's going to happen in either of those scenarios. So I want to differentiate that and stay to the end because the connections between the two are huge, obviously, and it's something that is heading for our near future. When we look at economic collapse, again, government control heading into this, usually it's orchestrated, we see things like hyperinflation, where the value of the dollar or the currency for the country you live in collapses and it becomes worthless, where it may cost you millions of dollars just to afford a loaf of bread. In those situations, like even during the Great Depression in the United States, even if you were up on your payments on your mortgage, people didn't read the fine print, still in effect now, where the banks could still take their houses. And that's something that corporations are trying to do now anyway, is make it so all housing, practically speaking, is corporate owned and you end up renting instead of owning your own house. That's why I always stress, if you can, try to pay off your house as fast as possible. But ultimately, what they're shooting for when we look at economic collapse is setting us into a welfare state, or even more so, socialism, where the government says, oh, all you poor people, the economy collapsed. How about we just take care of everything for you? And that may actually seem well and good in a lot of people's minds, but they don't understand that what we see is the government bureaucrats, the elite, still making ridiculous amount of money while everybody else is on this playing field down here, and they control you because if you don't do what they tell you to do, well, your social credit score goes in the toilet and therefore you can't travel, you may not get food, the list goes on and on. Now, that in itself can be looked at separately as actual government control. Because if we look at some type of disaster or catastrophe, or even civil unrest heading into government control, one of the things we look at, obviously, is martial law. And martial law will lead to the military being in charge. And it makes me really think about what Eisenhower said when he was leaving office, saying we need to watch out because the military-industrial complex literally could be heading in this direction. And I want people to understand that we've seen situations before where in the United States, we have had martial law. And let me show you this article real quick. And we're not going to spend a lot of time with this. 6 times martial law was declared and the Constitution was suspended in the United States. They give you a few examples, like the Battle of New Orleans. There's actually times where Mormon leaders have declared martial law. President Lincoln suspended the Constitution in order to save it. There's more to it than that, though. Even when there has been strikes, striking workers and union busters go too far. When Hawaii was attacked, it became a military dictatorship. They weren't even a state at the time. And kicking organized crime out of Alabama. And notice all those times are local. But those are not the only 6 times martial law has been declared. For better or worse, martial law has been declared 68 times in the United States. 68 times. Now, I think a lot of Americans think it can't happen again because it has been quite a while since it has happened. But understand that if we get into a situation in which we have dire consequences, catastrophe, disaster, whatever the case may be, which is coming, mind you, martial law is going to be something returning to us as well. And I have preppers say all the time, and here's where it starts getting good. I want you to understand this. Preppers say all the time, oh, you know what? That's why I'm going to hunker down on my house, going to take care of myself. All of these things happening as far as technology is spying on you, listening to you, setting metadata, even all this like chat GPT, all these chat AI things where you're putting information in, it's collecting data about you. It's always been about this. The government knows how much food you have, and they easily and can confiscate your food as signed by executive orders of previous presidents. So your food supply that you have stockpiling cannot be protected. You need to protect it yourself and make it so obviously the government doesn't find it. And a lot of people say, you know what, for situations like this, that's why I have a ham radio. And I'm certainly not discounting ham radios. I've got a couple of them too. It's good to have. But what a lot of people don't realize is our military has the ability very easily to jam this frequency so your ham radio will not work during those times. More so, it's even theorized, I think it probably happened, that they could probably shut down the internet as well. At the very least, they'll be able to shut down all of your service providers bringing internet to your house, whatever that might be as well. So at the very least, they can just cut you off from the internet if need be, especially if you are some type of enemy of the state. Or even more, think about this. Your GPS that we take for granted in your car, or as basically you look for directions on your phone, GPS is a military service. It's actually done by military satellites, and they change the signals on there. It's actually done by time, how much time it actually goes from the satellites to your GPS unit, to make it so, well, it's actually not super accurate. The military has pinpoint accuracy, practically speaking, compared to what we have. But our GPS units, if you make a right-hand turn, it knows that that's where it's at, and it will correct itself as you drive around. Pretty smart. But it's the military satellites that do this, and they will easily shut down GPS for anybody except for military applications. How many of you have maps? How many remember the days where we had to use maps for everything? I loved it, but I'll admit I'm kind of rusty with it too. I love using maps for stuff, but you know what? GPS makes it so easy. But you know what? Boom, it's gone as well. Think of most modern day technologies, conveniences, etc., disappearing if this happens with martial law. It very well and could easily happen. So we need to prep and we need to prepare, and you need to prepare for all contingencies, not depending on GPS and internet as well. Yeah, no more Goshen prepping. Time to download all our videos, right, for later on, or all your other favorite how-to videos too. Or what I say to everybody is make a 3-ring binder. That way everything's on paper. But I don't know about you. Put in the comments below what you think about this. I believe we're heading for a greater depression, far worse than the last one, and I believe we're heading for World War III. I think it's all going to happen within the next year or two. Maybe before then. And if we go into martial law, which has happened in previous wars and conflicts too, all this stuff that we take for granted as preppers very well may disappear. And we have to be ready for that. And that's probably our hardest battle.